My name is Christopher Lee, and this is my informative speech on genetically modified foods. Now, according to Charles Darwin, in the struggle for survival, the fittest went out at the expense of their own rivals because they succeed in adapting themselves best to their environment. In short, this is Charles Darwin's idea of the survival of the fittest. Most people know about this, where the fittest animal or the fittest plant is going to make it through, so they're going to survive. And the earliest form of genetic manipulation was selective breeding of animals and planets. Selective breeding would be when farmers see that a certain type of crop did better than the others, so they would keep these seeds and grow them next harvest. So basically, when crops whose traits were more beneficial were kept. In comparison, genetically modifying is just that, except that we take more traits from other crops or even animals to enhance our foods. Now, genetically modified foods are foods that are genetically altered, and they currently are legal and have a huge impact on our society today. The tomato was the very first commercialized genetically modified food in the U.S., and it hit market in the year 1994, according to the GMO Compass, which is a consumer webpage. Currently, genetically modified foods are legal in the U.S., but must meet certain requirements and guidelines before being put on the market. Now, the people that oversee these guidelines are known as the FDA, the EPA, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Now, GMF, which are genetically modified foods, are things that are genetically engineered, and GMOs are organisms where genetic material has been altered using genetic engineering. Some of the examples of these are yeast, insects, plants, and fish. Now, GMFs are derived from GMOs, and two of the common genetic engineering is recombinant DNA, which means like remixed or recombined DNA technology, where one cell DNA is introduced into another cell DNA. And then there's also the second, which are stacked trait organism, which is where more than one trait is altered, such as the Roundup/Yield Guild corn, which is an example of the stacked trait organisms. They are both resistant to insects and resistant to Roundup, which is a herbicide that they use to kill weeds and different kind of things. Now, there's also these things called dwarf plants, which they tend to yield more fruit than anything. So they use these genes also in stacked trait organisms to add to other vegetables and different organisms, such as wheat and rice. Now, as I said, the FDA is one of the things that have approved the GMF, which is they have a voluntary process only valid for companies that are outside of the U.S. And if they are inside the U.S., they have to go through the process where they have their FDA biotechnology evaluation team go through a strict set of guidelines in order to provide an okay on the GMFs to be approved. Now, 85% of corn and 88% of cotton in America today is genetically engineered, and the EPA and the U.S. Department of Agriculture are the ones are responsible for this. Now, the only hookup on genetically modified foods is that the companies that make these will become stronger, which will create a monopoly in the world. Now, one of their claims is that we will not be able to feed the world, while in fact that we produce enough to be able to feed the world naturally. Another hookup on the genetically modified foods is the introduction of super weeds, which are weeds that become adapted to different genetically modified foods because they have to alter themselves in order to kill the organisms. And the same thing happens for insects. Now, in one study in 1994 from Cornell University, found out that the monarch butterfly, if it fed on large amounts of BT corn, it would die off. So in conclusion, a genetically modified organism is an organism that is altered, and that is altered through genetic engineering such as recombinant DNA technology and stack trait organisms. And the FDA, the EPA, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture are responsible for that.